Real quickly before we jump into the video, if you guys enjoy G Fuel or you want to check it out, if you head over to gfuel.com and use code espresso at checkout, you'll have 30% off your order, not just the standard 10 that it normally is. So if there's ever a time to try something out, you get a better discount by using code espresso for a limited time. I think it goes until the end of the 22nd. So if you guys want to check that out, head over there and give it a go. That said, back into the regularly scheduled content. Whether you're a hardened veteran within Blackout or you're jumping on for the very first time as a part of the free-to-play week that's going on currently, there's a lot of things that you may not know about Blackout, some tips and tricks that you might want to consider, and also maybe some areas you didn't even know existed. So today we're going to be taking a look at 10 different Blackout secrets and tips that you probably didn't know about. But as with any other video of the sorts, maybe you know a couple of these, and if so, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if there's anything that you guys would like to add to this list, feel free to let me know again in the comments below. But jumping right into it, starting out with a tip that helps the very beginning of the game, and I'm talking especially if you land hot drops. Whenever you find and pick up a weapon, you may notice that you can't start shooting until the animation for that pickup is done, where your character will pick up the weapon, cock it back, and then you can get into the action. However, that's a good half second to a second that you might be at a disadvantage. So if somebody is near you, especially in a hot drop, and they have a weapon, may have gotten it a split second earlier, you might already be in their crosshairs and need to fire back as soon as possible. Now, while this tip doesn't necessarily guarantee you that victory in a gunfight, it is something that will greatly level that playing field. So whereas you might pick up the weapon, wait for it to cock back, and then start firing, what you can do to mitigate that time a little bit is whenever you go and pick it up, immediately hit your Y triangle or whatever you have bound to your weapon swap on PC as, hit that twice so it toggles real fast, and then you can completely mitigate all of that time that it takes to cock back the weapon. You immediately go into what may be a hip fire, or if you can aim down sight at the same time, you go into an ADS shot as well. So it's something that greatly cuts down that time that you'll have to wait before jumping into a gunfight or being alert enough to jump into a gunfight. So that's something to keep in mind when you first initially drop. Second up on this list here of tips is to actually utilize mesh mines. You have an ability to stack up to 5, not just 4 that you normally pick up. You can have 5 in your inventory per slot, and it's something that mesh mines are tremendously useful in Blackout, especially in an anti-vehicle type of way. When you take a look at mesh mines, they actually do pretty much the exact same thing as your cluster grenades. In our last tips and tricks, things that you didn't know about within Black Ops 4, we talked about cluster grenades being ever so effective against vehicles like the cargo truck, which are armored and naturally would take a lot more to end up killing the player either inside or blowing it up via the way just of your shots in your weapon. So they're incredibly useful in that sense, but trip mines do the exact same thing, in which if somebody is piloting or driving that vehicle, you can end up shooting them, and if you stick it, you'll end up blowing it up and either killing everyone or downing a few players in the process. More than likely, it'll end up being the pilot or the driver if you don't kill everyone on board. So if you want your David vs. Goliath moment within Blackout, this is a great way to start whenever you can take out either a full squad or just somebody charging you with a vehicle of some sorts. Number 3 up on this list is one that actually I found out about inadvertently. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it's happened a couple of times since I first initially came across it. But if you end up using a trauma kit, this will lessen the chance that you actually get taken out in one hit by an ATV. The only way that you will be taken out by a one hit at this point is if you are hit dead on, if you're hit completely dead center of the ATV. If you're sideswiped at all, you'll end up coming away with quite a bit of damage, but you'll still be alive. Normally an ATV will inflict more than 150 damage, so in most cases you'll end up being taken out in one hit. But while it does sometimes not kill players due to lag, it also can sometimes be due to a trauma kit. If a player has a trauma kit equipped, it will then bring them down to roughly around 27 HP if they are sideswiped, and that will be something that then you can heal up a little further, but it doesn't guarantee that one-hit kill. So if you are somebody that gets taken by surprise and you may have had a trauma kit, again, it's more situational than other tips, but it is something that can save your life in Blackout from time to time. Next 2 things we'll talk about here deal with a little bit of secret locations within Blackout. And I think of the 3 months that Blackout has been out and available to the full public outside of the beta, and even extending into the beta, I think I've seen maybe 1 person ever utilize these locations, but they do offer some prime real estate if you know about them. So the first one we'll talk about comes in at Rivertown, and if you end up ever going around Red Barn from Fringe, if Rivertown is a hot drop, it's usually one of the more contested locations. But did you know there's a secret area up in the sort of attic of that barn? From the street, you can end up seeing there's a little bit of an overlook window right above the sign that says GMO Grain and Seeds Co. If you end up either grappling up there, or you can even go in on the other side, get on the roof and break in from the top. If you go up there, there are 2 ledges on one side and the other of that sort of attic of Red Barn that you can utilize to either scope out the area within Rivertown. You can check across the river and see if there's anybody coming in, or it can be just prime real estate again to just scout out. Now, there is every so often some loot that could be of value up here. A lot of times times it could just be attachments, some ammo, maybe a little bit of healing, but not all that much will spawn up here, simply because there's not a lot of area to work with, and therefore it just won't drop in those locations. But for more tactical vantage points, that's a great overlook to take advantage of. Outside of that, there also is one over in Train Station that actually, as of recently, almost got my team killed in a game, but we ended up coming back and spotting them. But it is definitely something that you're not used to, and so therefore can be tricky to end up finding players if they are in that position. But this is being in the rafters of the train station itself. When you take a look at it, the wooden beams are just out of viewpoint enough that not many players will look up there. But when you take a look at the ones in the corner, that's where they start to get a little bit more tricky, because they are tougher to find. If you're in these sort of reception areas or back offices, you can't really tell where players are shooting you from. And again, not many people go up here, so it's not like you'd normally check up top. But while it leaves you very open compared to other locations you could take some cover with, you do have perfect vantage points of every single entry into that building. So it's something to consider, not necessarily the best idea to utilize, but situationally it can be a good choice. Number 6 on the list deals with something that is a perk many players may not pick up all that much because it's not in that regular rotation of things like Paranoia, Dead Silence, Awareness, Reinforced, and perks alike. But this one instead deals a little bit with the Consumer perk, and again, while a little bit underutilized more than likely, players are probably thinking more so about using it for activating other perks, activating their healing, and getting back in the fight a little quicker. But one thing, especially given right now the limited time mode that is so crucial in the late game to be able to repair your armor and heal up, Consumer is definitely a fantastic perk to have at your disposal. But one thing you may not consider is, especially with the newest passes to the armor tuning, is that this greatly increases the speed at which you can repair your armor at. So whereas previously it was something that the armor speed was nerfed, this now brings it more so up to that previous alignment for how fast it takes. So Consumer might be one that, again, even in this limited time mode more than any other game mode as of recently, you may want to consider, but even in just your standard solos, duos, and quads, Consumer might be one that, given that health regeneration for the armor and how quickly you can pop it back, that might be something you might want to consider. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about trophy systems, because believe it or not, trophies actually block pretty much everything thrown at it. Whereas you may think about trophies in the past more so blocking your frag grenades, your sticky grenades, or things like that, the more so damageable stuff, this instead will take pretty much any projectile. The only thing that it does not counter is the basketball. But even if you throw things at it like the combat axe, that will destroy that in midair as well, plus anything else that you have at your disposal. Smoke grenades, concussions, sensor darts, all that will be gone in an instant whenever you have it. Now, unfortunately, the trophy system only lasts about 5 or 6 throws before it is something that then disappears by itself, but even things like your mesh mines stand no chance to it. So while you might not, again, consider taking a trophy system because it might take up some space that you may not be wanting to get rid of, it is definitely worthwhile whenever you consider how much is actually blocked by the trophy system. The final things we'll talk about here actually are more so of sort of heads up things and things you may not necessarily take into consideration all that much, but they are things that definitely want to be conscious of in game. So the first one of this, rounding into our number 8 spot, is that if you're a passenger in a vehicle, you don't get any audio or visual cue of a rocket being locked onto you. This is something that can honestly be tremendously frustrating. I know that I ended up having a fully kitted out Paladin, a fully kitted out ICR the one time I was playing with Courier Ink Slasher. As a result of this not giving you the indication, he ended up bailing out of our raft that we were in, but I had no idea, and so therefore it just downed me instantly, and because you're in water, well, it doesn't work out too well if you're downed. So that's something to be conscious of if you are in a vehicle and may just be the passenger. Always have your heads up and also be communicating with the driver so that if that comes in, you can then end up bailing and not having any damage done to you or downing or killing you. A quick little tip that I would definitely recommend to everybody is to also check what way you have your minimap orientation. There are 2 options you can end up going into your Blackout settings and checking out, one being circular and one being square. Now, square will always have it due north, and it is a situated compass in which it does not change. So of course your north, east, south, and west will indicate as such, but if you end up changing to the circular, it then rotates with your perspective. So north isn't always that top of your compass, but instead wherever you are looking then will rotate with you. To me, I think that circular is a much better option here for this, and so therefore I always play on circular. It just keeps me more so in the loop if somebody says any coordinates behind me. I just don't get disoriented when somebody's in front of me then, and on my minimap, instead of them being right in front of where my arrow is always pointed, it then showcases maybe say to the bottom left or bottom of where the arrow may be. So that one comes down to just more so preference, but make sure you check that one out. And the final tip that I'll say here, again, for beginners or pros, I know that some players that even I have played with that have played Blackout for quite some time didn't really realize they weren't on it, but make sure you end up having your tap to pick up enabled. By default, it is hold to pick up, assuming you're on console. PC, of course, just a tap no matter what, but whenever you're on console, you usually have to hold your square or X button to pick things up in Blackout, but if you have the tap enabled, it allows you to get in and out way faster. But ultimately, that's where we're gonna wrap it up. I think that is 10 little secrets and some tips, a little combination of both of those all added into one for, again, either beginners that are just checking out Blackout for the very first time, or players that maybe like me and may not think about some of these things in their regular day-to-day gameplay. That said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4, multiplayer, Blackout in particular. I love Blackout, so if you guys want to see more Blackout content, feel free to let me know. And of course, zombies as well. If any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, there's the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those. So if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever that may be, link is down there in the description below. But let's send it out of the way. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.